How our cells can produce ATP. There's basically two ways. Like I said at the very beginning, there's with oxygen and without oxygen. And it really just depends on how much ATP your cells are going to make. So anaerobic metabolism is going to be making ATP in the cytoplasm of the cell, and it's not going to make very many, maybe 2 to 4 molecules of ATP. Aerobic metabolism, on the other hand, can make 32 to 34 molecules of ATP. So it's not rocket science that aerobic metabolism is going to give you many more molecules of ATP than anaerobic metabolism. But the anaerobic metabolism is good, again, for those short spurts of high intense activities. So we can take, as it shows here in the chart, all of our macromolecules, our proteins, our carbs, our fats, we break them down, and we can use those monomers to enter into these chemical reactions to make ATP. So one of the main anaerobic processes is called glycolysis. And so glycolysis is going to give us 2 ATP. And then we end up getting acetyl coenzyme A. Well, we get pyruvic acid, and then we get acetyl coenzyme A. Acetyl coenzyme A will enter into this cycle called the Krebs cycle and give us a couple more ATP. But then this actually sets the stage for what we call oxidative phosphorylation, or this is your aerobic metabolism or respiration. And it's the electron transport chain. All right. And this is where we're going to get our 32 to 34 molecules of ATP. So how do we get those molecules to make ATP? How are cells using them? So just to review what I just showed you, but in a little more detail, you have your nice juicy hamburger and you've got some proteins in it, carbohydrates, and some fats. And those get broken down. You eat it. We've got mechanical digestion where you're chewing it. The stomach is going to squish up those food particles even further. And then with chemical digestion of enzymes, they'll be broken down into smaller and smaller components, into their monomers, and then you get absorption in the small intestine. And then those individual molecules, the glycerol, the fatty acids, the glucose, and the amino acids, are going to be delivered to the cells that need them. And the cells are going to take these things and they're going to say, okay, let's enter glycolysis, or let's take them and let's take these monomers and let's make ATP out of them. And so the first place that these molecules can go is through glycolysis to make pyruvate. And then the pyruvate will give us acetyl coenzyme A. Acetyl coenzyme A is what's going to enter the TCA or the Krebs cycle. And then that's going to go into the electron transport chain. Now there's 2 areas where these events occur in the cell. You have this area, and that's why I put a green line here. This occurs, the anaerobic processes of glycolysis happen in the cytoplasm of the cell. The aerobic process, which is really with the electron transport chain, occurs in the mitochondria. If you remember when we were learning about our organelles, mitochondria are sometimes referred to as the powerhouse because they make the ATP. That's where the aerobic respiration occurs. So all of the molecules or monomers from anything we eat can actually be used to generate acetyl coenzyme A, and either directly from fatty acids and amino acids or through pyruvate indirectly. And then once we have acetyl coenzyme A, that can enter into this cycle. Now this cycle, TCA cycle, Krebs cycle, has several names. It has 3, as a matter of fact. TCA, Krebs, and citric acid cycle. If you had a biology class in high school, you may remember learning about one of those terms. They're pretty much interchangeable. They all mean the same thing, and you can use whichever one you want. So once the Krebs cycle or the TCA cycle is complete, and it goes through its cycle twice, then there are hydrogen ions that are released from the cycle, and they will get carried to the electron transport chain. That's what the ETC stands for. And the electron transport chain uses those hydrogen ions to basically make a concentration difference across the membrane of hydrogen ions. And it harnesses the energy of that concentration gradient to make ATP and water.